First, we start strengthening the hips. In the very initial stage in our clinical trial that we're doing here, we do strengthening of the hip, isolated strengthening of the hip. We prefer the single limb deadlift exercise because that's an exercise that has been shown in the literature to be one of the exercises that has more activation of the gluteus maximus, has the biggest activation of that muscle. So we emphasize that with progressive load. We also do isolated hip extension because we want to focus on that specific muscle. And then we try to train them in their landing mechanics. So first we start with a simple drop jump. So they are landing from a box around 30 centimeters in height. We ask them to land and do a little bit of trunk flexion and do a backward projection of their hips. So just to be clear, we don't ask them to land and then do this, just bend their trunk forward. We ask them to project their hips back and just do a little bit more trunk flexion. And then we ask them to pay attention to the sound of their landing. If they're landing and making a lot of noise, that's usually an indicator that they're landing stiffly. So we ask, pay attention to the sound, land as softly as possible. Try to make no sound whatsoever. Then they really pay attention into using their ankles, using their hips, using their knees, bending their trunk a little bit more, so they actually do a better distribution of the load across all joints. And then as soon as they do well with the drop landing, which is a simple just drop from the bench, drop from the box and land, we ask them to do more dynamic activities. So after a drop jump, we do a drop vertical jump. So they land from the box and then do a maximal vertical jump and then land again. And then I ask them to pay attention in both landings. Land as soft as possible, a little bit of backward projection of your hips, a little bit more trunk flexion. And then as soon as that is doing well, we progress to more sports-specific jumps. So we go into, if it's a volleyball player, I'm going to ask him to do a serve and then land as softly as possible. I'm going to ask him to come and do an attack and then land as softly as possible.